Welcome to Club Doom, where I'm a creative, and I reckon I'm a ballpark it at like 60% of y'all watching at home, also a creative in some way. Got a passion project you looking to finish, a hobby you want to turn into a full-time job someday, or you just got like a really good idea that you ain't seen no one do yet. And like any creative, you got some external obstacles, budgeting, time constraints, that one family member who keep dismissing your accomplishments, George. Disclaimer, there ain't actually a George. But today I want to talk about the big one, the invisible one, the internal one, that creep up on everyone at some point. Self-sabotage. I want to teach y'all how to avoid this, so you never have to be that guy who been sitting on finishing his pilot for his post-apocalyptic dramedy cartoon for the past 6 years. And what better story to work off of than the story of Bob's game? Well, maybe not the game itself, it never dropped, but like the story behind the development of Bob's game, and how its own creator is solely to blame. So what is Bob's game? Well, that part of the problem. There is no Bob's game. It never dropped. So let's try this. It's 2008. You playing Half-Life 2 on the orange box, while bumping Terror Squad era DJ Khaled like an absolute success kid. After watching some Gmod Idiot Box, you find a trailer for some random ad game called Bob's Game. Intrigued by the tongue-in-cheek title, you click on the video and are met with this. You. Your parents. Your older brother. Your little brother. The neighbor kid. The neighbor kid's parents. The neighbor kid's sister. The neighbor kid's lazy uncle. The skaters. The sceners. The goths. The nerds. The jocks. The punks. The rich kids. The pudgy kids. The pimply kids. The scrawny kid. The foreign exchange student. The bully that was held back a year. The gangsta kid. The thug kid. The custodial technician. The librarian. The school nurse. The secretary. The completely incompetent principal. The hall monitor that absolutely... Okay. The teacher who had... The teacher who thinks kids need... The very sad teacher on antidepressants. Teacher who gives Fs. Granny. Teacher who don't give a F, the crossing guard, the lady who lived next door with cats. He jogs in spandex, this going too fast. How can you prove you've done the impossible? How's the recording? Oh god, not more characters. These people aren't even interesting. These just look like shitty people from a shitty town. Alright, so from what I can gather, we know it's an idea for an Earthbound-inspired RPG game with a huge cast of characters made by one scrawny bull named Robert who don't wear a shirt. We also know it garnered some intrigue, considering it got 100k views on YouTube, which was pretty big at the time. And I mean, makes sense. Again, this was 2008, so he technically beat Amori and Undertale to the Earthbound punch. It ain't like interest in that type of game hadn't existed prior. But what the selling point of the game? I don't know. Well, when we got a playable demo of the genre, it seemed like the idea was to replace the traditional turn-based RPG battle system with mini-games, which I'm down for. That sounds good on paper, but all we had to go off of at this point was a part of the demo where you play Tetris on some kid's Game Boy, and that ain't gonna cut it. Which leads me to my first point about this. If you want to make a game, that's cool, but like, why should I play it? What do you even do in it? What's the foundational idea? What separates this game from a tech demo? Or I don't know, just have something. Or at least a vision that go beyond me want people buy me video game. Cause off the rip, this is already looking like a flop to me. Having 200 plus characters might sound like a good blurb on the back of the box, but it don't really matter if the game trash. Like, is this an Earthbound-esque game where we start in a small town before we fight an interdimensional alien demigod from outer space? Or is this just like lonely computer dork who live with his parents simulator? I think I reserve the right to know before I invest any time, let alone money, into the project. Cause I could always just go to the guy with the reductive single sentence pitch if it hit right.
Kick-ass fighting games with action missiles.
Assuming Robert even got the needs of the consumer in mind, bro just kinda seemed lost in his own head. Which leads me to... I'm gonna read the first page from Robert's autobiography. You tell me if he sound like the type to work well with others, let alone the type to give a rat's ass about making a game for people to enjoy, and not just a vessel for him to yap through. From the beginning, I hated school. Or maybe it was just the other kids, because they were idiots. Even in first grade, I sat alone on the playground and drew comics. In second grade, I misspelled the word neighbor in front of my class. They all laughed at me. It was the first mistake I had ever made. During recess, another student framed me by making me hold my tongue and say apple to the teacher. What a d- Alright, I'm gonna give Robert this. That kid was out of pocket. Also, I just want to point out, Robert was like in his late 20s when writing this. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong. I had a great childhood. I remember being in my next door neighbor's basement and finding a single of 9 Inch Nails' Closer, left there by one of his older siblings. I picked it up and I was mesmerized by the cover, immediately wanting to listen to it. Perhaps that's when the devil got in. When I was young, I searched through all my parents' things, looking for any weakness I could find, any reason to not respect them, to not have to listen to their rules. I couldn't find anything. I was disappointed that my dad didn't have porn like all the other kids' dads. Being disappointed in your dad because he ain't got no Playboy is crazy. I think you get the picture. Collaboration definitely don't seem like one of Robert's strong suits. In fact, he made a pretty big deal about how it was all made by one single person, even though it just kind of sounded like another back-of-the-box blurb. Might come to no one's surprise, but I think this hyper-individualist mindset might be a bit flawed in some aspects. Like, don't get me wrong, you can make things by yourself, for yourself even. Hell, I've seen people build entire brands off the concept of DIY. But we talking about a product. Someone outside of the friend group you made up in your head gotta be able to pick it up and say, yes, this looks interesting to me. I want this. I am willing to part with a chunk of my economic value in exchange for this at some point. And I feel like the best way to ensure this outcome is to have at least like one person check your work, kind of like how the teacher used to make you pass your rough draft to another student, since we talking about our school days. Even if it's just your homie who's never played an RPG before. Like, bro, even I got a couple friends I test screen these videos with so that I don't say anything too crazy. And I think if Robert just like got out of his own head and applied the same method, he could have at least had someone to tell him, hey yo, maybe less characters nobody care about, more minigames. Granted, there's the chance Bob might not even listen to him, especially if they said shit about dropping it on PC. When making any piece of art, compromise is inevitable. You always gotta consider the resources available to you. You can't get blood out of a stunt. Yeah, we talking about the Nintendo DS thing. See, Bob had this thing where his game could only be released on the Nintendo DS. Bro said it was for the sake of copyright protection, but as the story progressed, this condition come off as more of an obsession than a concern. Like, despite him saying the game was practically finished, and he could theoretically drop it at any point on PC, like all the solo indie devs before him, Bob was insistent that if anyone were to play Bob's game, it was to be on a Nintendo DS. Mind you, not a damn thing about the DS features was integral to the mechanics of the game, at least far as we know. Maybe some mini games incorporating the stylus were in the works. He just really f***ing wanted it on DS. Because. But this would require a dev kit directly from Nintendo. A mega corporation with studios, standards, publishing deals, and quite literally a million better things to do. So Robert was at a crossroad. He could either bite the bullet bill, release his passion project independently, and with any luck, if it garner enough positive feedback, maybe one day get offered the opportunity to port his game to a console. I mean, it worked for Cat. It worked for Toby Fox. In retrospect. Or he could take the route of every desperate pre-SoundCloud era rapper looking to get signed by Jay-Z and make an ass of himself.
I'm over here. So you can see it.
Spirit came audacious, meaning I'm more focused, worldly like all races.
All right, that's it,
Recording
guys.
where Ye
You do this shit.
car flaming.
That one ain't even real.
And judging by the lack of gameplay and walkthrough videos, you could probably guess what route he chose. Alright, so here was Robert's great idea to get a Nintendo dev kit. Check it. Lock yourself in a dimly lit room for 100 days on live stream. Wear a goofy costume. At Reggie Fils-Aime, or whatever the 2009 equivalent to tagging was. Give him weird pet names like You! and pray somehow this stunt garners his admiration and totally doesn't freak him out. Spoiler warning, it didn't work. 30 days in, Bob was collapsed on the floor. Police were knocking at his door for a wellness check. Nintendo had sent him a copy-paste rejection letter, and somehow his desk broke in half.
Nailed it.
But hey, at least he got even more attention on his game, whatever that's worth. And do you think he used this momentum for his rollout? No! Instead, he doubled down, saying it was all part of some Nintendo-spiracy.
It was no coincidence. It was obvious. The software kingdom had become infiltrated by the darkness of shovelware. Reggie was being controlled, his mind hopelessly weakened by an overload of Imagine's games. He had become corrupted, an evil double of the real Reggie. Even worse, it dawned on me. The man behind it all. That grinning figure in the shadows that rarely spoke. It was definitely him. Yes, Nintendo was being controlled by none other than Miyamoto.
Reggie Fils-Aime, Shigeru Miyamoto, Satoru Iwata, they were all just jealous. Jealous that Robert had thought of an autobiographical unlicensed Grandma's Boy movie tie-in game, and they hadn't. So bro had to take it a step further. He hired some models off of Craigslist, because Lord knows even if he had female friends, they wouldn't agree to this. And they raided the Nintendo store in NYC, filling the shelves with mock DS cases for Bob's game. But alas, their efforts were foiled by the jerk-ops.
Yeah, we're customers.
Okay, you gotta leave now.
We're going to the yes.
You want me to fuck you?
Give him the business card.
Okay, why didn't you tell me this in the beginning?
Because it's a surprise viral ad.
That's awesome, but you know what? Unfortunately, I have to find out about that.
You know, if Nintendo be as much of a soulless, evil, profit-driven corporation as you say, you could always just release the game on PC and... Oh, now we on Kickstarter talk about buying a shag van and how we finna live out of it while developing the rest of his game. See, this is why I don't buy the whole viral marketing campaign shtick.
Bob'sGame.com is a viral advertisement. It always was.
The story of a young independent developer named Bob, who has created a game and struggles to get it published in a cold industry. He discovers a dark secret. The industry doesn't want new ideas. It's a carefully controlled business model, and real innovation poses a threat. Of course, this is all just in the game. I'm sure it's not really like that.
Cause yeah, that was his story when he started getting called out enough. Like, Robert, you doing way too much for this to be a waffle pone. This more like a rollin' and trollin'. Point being, substance over spectacle. Product over spectacle. A game I can actually buy over spectacle. Cause when it comes to people's attention, anyone can get it. The hard part's keeping it. Hi, Bob. The Kickstarter funding closed 1 year ago today. Any update? Thanks, and I wish you good luck. Well, safe to say at this point, people been done with Robert's BS. And eventually he found himself the target of constant trolling. Like when he tried to announce the ND World, a handheld console to serve as a replacement for the Nintendo DS.
This is the ND, the indie handheld console. It's about the size of a micro, with a larger screen, more buttons, and a faster CPU. It's everything that you'd expect from a handheld console, without the gimmicks. Instead of only allowing a handful of developers to make games for our system, it's open to everybody. The ND plugs into a PC to connect to an online game store full of interesting, lovingly crafted indie games. The ND is insanely cheap. Cheap to make, and sold at cost. $1 for plastics, a couple dollars for a cell phone screen, a battery pack, and about $6 for a system on a chip. These prices have dropped exponentially due to the rise of smartphones. The ND has many surprises in store, and through the power of marketing, we could harness your imagination to sell you products for more than their true value, because you will believe they do more than they actually do. It's just a toy. We're selling it at cost. It's open to everybody. The ND.
Which, in my opinion, seemed like a cool idea. It would come with Bob's Game.
Welcome to Bob's Game.
and indie developers could submit their own games to be ported on it, but at this point, the damage to his reputation had already been done. Hackers and trolls would go out of their way to sabotage it, which is unfortunate. I deadass want to try Dragon Stabber, but I guess it's not meant to be. The aforementioned trolls would replace the SDK's download page with insults, prompting Bob to shut down the project, which is downright diabolical. Imagine clicking on a download link and it just redirects you to
Fat, gay, idiot, dumbass. What the fuck?
Come 2016, bro just said fuck it, refunded all the Kickstarter money, and dropped Bob's Game on Steam. And it was nothing like what was promised.
Bob's Game is the greatest puzzle game ever made. It's every puzzle game in one. Switch between every puzzle game in real time, morphing from game to game as you play. Create custom game sequences or play just your favorite. Invent new puzzle games with the custom puzzle game creator. Challenge online players to your custom games and vote on theirs. Multiplayer with unlimited players and controllers is supported, making Bob's Game the ultimate party game. It has mixed mode local and online multiplayer, so you can form a team and challenge others. Compete in an interdimensional global online tournament to become #1 in the world at any game. The C++ source code is on GitHub with new features coming out all the time, so Bob's Game can never be stopped. And it's completely free, so download it right now.
In the end, Bob's Game would go down in history as an overhyped tech demo, accompanied by a messy and very unclear quote-unquote viral marketing campaign. Meanwhile, other indie titles like Undertale, Amori, Ziggurat, Dusk, etc. would all achieve the accolades Robert hoped to get, including physical releases on Nintendo consoles. And Braid would get roasted by Soulja Boy, just as a funny side note.
Oh man, hey, it's your boy Soulja Boy. Tell them, hey, they got this game right for people who smoke or people who drink. Like if you drink beer and you get drunk, or if you smoke weed and you get high, and you just anything like if you just begin up, they got this game right, and they ain't got no point to the game. You just walk around jumping on shit. It look like Mario in the future. The funny part about it, you can do this right here. Watch this. You. What do you do? How you do that? How you do that? If you didn't catch that, I just went back in time through the whole game. He just be going back in time. Watch this. Like you about to die. You be like, oh, shit, I'm gonna die. Just go back. So say like he go up here, right, and he fall in the fire. I sucked your ass out, bitch. Hey, what is shit? Come here, bitch. Look at this shit. Nah.
Crazy thing is, before the ND, before the Nintendo store raid, before the 100-day protest, even before the release of the initial trailer, Bob had a chance to get his game greenlit by Nintendo. Apparently, he met with a company representative at the 2008 Game Dev Conference and showcased his software running on a Nintendo DS. And when the rep asked Bobbert if he'd be willing to work with his own team within Nintendo, Bull said no. I just want that to sink in. He said no. He had his foot in the door and everything. All he had to do was compromise and accept the guidance being offered by Nintendo so as to not fuck it up. And he decided to fuck it up anyway, for a solid 8 years after the fact. The rep said something along the lines of, moral of the story, despite all the external factors that sometimes get in the way of our artistic endeavors, please make sure you ain't getting in your own way on top of that, because more often than not, that's the outlier. Have a clear vision. Reach out to people to double check your work. Be willing to compromise. Don't get caught up so much in the spectacle of marketing, and don't just quit when shit get rough. And maybe, just maybe, you might write the anthem of a generation. You might just make the game of the year. You might just finish that post-apocalyptic dramedy I was talking about, and you'll only go up from there. This Club Doom signing out. I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, do all the YouTube stuff for the algorithm. Like, comment. I'm sure y'all sick of hearing it at this point. And I'll catch you later. Sweet nectar.